Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. It's where we got Kasper back on the show. Kasper, you've been on like 12 times already. I don't even need to let you introduce yourself.
Oh, hello, campers. How's everybody?
Campers.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all those in between.
That's who you that's who you would be if this was like 30 years ago. You would be that person like Mr. Rogers on the television, but except you would be dressed up in a Boy Scouts outfit, sitting by a campfire and be like, "Howdy, partners."
Howdy parties, but I've just the sad thing is the vision's going through my head. I was going, where's he going with this? Where's he going with the Boy Scout uniform? Because isn't it sad that even a Boy Scout uniform isn't safe anymore?
No, it's not. I just watched the documentary. It's called what is it? Scouts Honor on Netflix.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
about the massive pedophilia that was going on. We're not starting the episode off with this. Hang
No,
on
we're
a
not
second.
starting it. We're not
No, we're
starting it
not
off
going to
very
go
well at
into that.
all.
I didn't know, but I knew there was a stereotype when they talked about Boy Scouts can tie the knot in like 50 different ways. It's a bad way. So we want to restart. We can restart if you want.
That's fine.
It's real though. It's real though. You got to talk about it. I didn't know it was such a big issue. Like I know everyone jokes about like the church and all that, but that's an issue as well too. But there's like real things. Do we not? Are we not supposed? We're not supposed to talk about real things. We have to be PG. Do you want to be PG this episode? We can.
Sure. So how about the Mets? Look at a baseball.
Your smile was like when a kid drops his ice cream on the ground and has to kind of keep the face clean.
I can't. Yeah, it's like
Look, I didn't know your humor was as dirty as mine. I mean, I know for the times we've talked, we've gotten into some interesting subjects, but when you sent me that Soho Voices thing,
Mm.
and it was a little skit, which I'm sure we can play a little bit later on,
Oh,
but
yeah, I'm sure you can. That was from a television show called Dead Like Me, which was a very unsung show. I sometimes forget that I was an actor for, even though I did it for like 20 years. Uh, it was such a different part of the UK, even though I did some acting here in the UK, but it just seems like it's such a different time, and it was a different time. And the thing about that show and the sketch itself is that scene. I'm swearing, and you saw I'm swearing. Like I'm telling a story about a fucking sea turtle who bites someone's balls off while I'm getting stoned, and that was when HBO had just sort of started. And so what we did, and Dead Like Me was a huge program. Writers all of a sudden went, we can swear. And so they started just writing in shit all over the place. And then we had to do what was called a Disneyfied version for cable, where that later on, that story, I tell it again, but with no swears in it and no biting of balls and it makes no sense at all. But the writers just went, yeah, we have to do this. So if we can show it in like prime time. But it was a really weird time for TV because all of a sudden, where you had trouble saying even a word like bitch or hell, or it was very difficult to say, oh my God, you couldn't even say that. You had all of a sudden writers writing in every F word that they could think of just because it was HBO, and HBO allowed that now because it was separate from all the networks and wasn't owned by the church and anything like that. And it was, so that was a really fun scene to do. Like, although um in the scene I'm smoking, like I'm supposed to be smoking a joint, and so I'm passing this joint around, and it was clove cigarettes. And the fact that I smoked a pipe then actually really helped, because smoking clove cigarettes for 12 hours, like, by the end of the day I was like
yeah, why don't they let you smoke real cigarettes?
um that's an interesting question, because clove cigarettes, in that quantity, are actually probably more harmful for you than
Yeah.
tobacco itself, because the clove oil coats your lungs. The clove smoke, oops, the smoke just gets in there, and it just coats your lungs, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna wobble a bit. That's
No, there
sorry.
was an interview with one of my favorite comedians when he was a kid. He was on Sesame Street, and he talked about how like he met Big Bird without Big Bird's helmet on, like the little mask thing, and he was outside smoking a cigarette. And he was talking about like through his acting career, he was kind of exposed to a lot of like the bad stuff. And when he was older and he was playing like a side character in a thing, they made him smoke clove cigarettes. And he was like, I normally just I smoke regular cigarettes. Just give me a regular cigarette. It's better than these because on your 12th take of smoking a clove cigarette, your throat is basically gone. And I was like, yeah, what if you they know, especially back then. I mean, what would you consider the best period for television or film?
Yeah, that's a very good you like you
Today's
look
pretty
back.
good, but
Well, it even for example, like I was looking at I was just pondering that question because I saw the remake of One Piece, for example, the live action remake. And one of the things I noticed right away about it was none of the characters smoke. Now in the manga, three-quarters of the characters smoke. There's, it's the guy who created the thing, Oda. He either had a thing about smoking, but a lot of the characters smoked. And so in the live action remake, none of them smoked. And you look back on television where they used to have like bowls of, the ashtrays filled with cigarettes on set, just butts all over the place. So can you just imagine those sets? Well, like imagine we used to be able to smoke on planes, a closed tube in the sky.
yeah, but like smoking a cigarette's like business casual. Like I consider like that's for me, it's a filler for a scene, first of all. You don't really need to have anybody just standing there making it awkward. You just smoke a cigarette or pull something. I mean, they're synonymous with like jazz clubs and late night like street walks and
Well, even things like Columbo, in his cigar, that was an affectation. Like he decided, to have it. It's sort of in the script, but he didn't. Sometimes it was lit, sometimes it wasn't. But yeah, it's smoking on TV was very rarely because they made a deal of it. Although actually, like in the 50s and the 60s, it just everybody smoked. So there were just it was part of the you like if an actor said, "Hey, I can can you got any matches or anything?" Or there was just there was no issue about anyone smoking anything like that.
well, there
And then
wasn't as
later
much
on,
sensitivity. Like we don't have people that go, I don't like second, like when secondhand smoke commercials started coming out was a big, I mean, I remember every parent probably smoked in the car with their kid, whether it was windows up or down. And honestly, the windows down made it worse
yeah,
because people didn't realize that, like, and I remember telling my parents about it when they would smoke in the car was like, you're rolling my window down. All the smoke is going to come out my window. So you're basically just having it all funnel it out my way.
did they do that? I don't know if they did it in the States. They were going to do it in Canada, where they were going to make it illegal for you to smoke in the car if you had a child. And it was around the same time that they were banning smoking in bars and nightclubs and things. And so there were a lot of parents out there going, you can't tell me what to do in my own car. You can't pull me over and give me a ticket for smoking while there's a child in here. Because like, yeah, my mom probably smoked, a couple packs a day when she was pregnant with me, kind of thing. It
I
just,
don't think it was their fault though, because I think the science on that was so skewed because if we know about the lies that the tobacco industry had.
yeah, yeah.
But to me, like, I mean, if we go back to the original question, which was what was the best time for film, or actually we could probably break that down a little bit. What would be the best time for talk shows? I think talk shows were better back in the day. Mostly now everything's really, really watered down and it's not my sense of comedy. But like when you used to have the real interviews, like before the Jerry Springer show, when you would have the late night television smoking a cigarette, back when kind of Letterman was on there. But even then, that got fucking weird too.
Even before then, even the like talk shows have been around since television's been around, like the 50s. Like if you watch the 50s talk shows and they
Well, Dan Rather and Walter Cronkite, all these people that had their own like kind of radio
yeah, I
segments.
mean they had their own stuff, and but the thing on those shows, like those talk shows, is again, here you got a guy sitting there, on their little sofa, he's got his legs crossed, they've handed him a glass of scotch and he's got a smoke, and they're having a chat, and that wasn't that big a deal, kind of thing. Now I'm trying to think if they did that, and I know they did it in the UK. Did they do it in North America, or did they just hide that? I don't think they hid the smoking part, maybe the drinking, that which was really strange. Like, talk about what people were trying to consider morally right and wrong, like with alcohol. And the thing was with alcohol, alcohol wasn't funding the TV shows, so they weren't promoting it. Whereas you had a show like I remember seeing an ad for Gunsmoke, and you had James Arness, and so they do the show, and in between they would go, and now somebody would come on and go, and now for station identification, uh and or and now for a word from our sponsor, and then they cut, and there's James Arness kind of laying back on a sofa. He's got a smoke, and he goes, "It's nothing smoother than camels." And then he goes, "Now back to the show." And you're like, what the hell was
That
that?
was an
Like
ad.
but it was an ad, but the he was in street clothes, like normal 60s clothes, because when did they film Gunsmoke? Late 50s, early 60s. And so it was just really strange when you go, what did I just say? um, but yeah, the best time when nobody really gave a
Yeah,
shit, probably the 70s in a way, where
70s.
yeah, where the 60s, the 70s, where because the 80s people started getting a bit nutty with the because the 80s was like the Arsenio Hall show, this show. You had so many people trying to do the late night stuff. They were and Saturday Night
It
Live.
was the cocaine paranoia which was going on.
Yeah, so people were you had a lot of there's just different stuff going on in the 80s, like you know the stuff that they were keeping sort of hidden in the 70s was sort of coming out in the 80s, with the yeah, a lot of the drug use and a lot of stuff. And and a lot of what was the 80s, the Dennis Miller show. There's so many people trying to do late night. And then we had that again for a while, where like in the between like 2010 and 2020, there was a whole bunch of it was like the kingpins, like Leno and all those guys, were sort of stepping down, and other people were moving in,
Yeah.
but they didn't really have the niche yet, so they wouldn't last very long. And then they would replace them with someone else, and replace them with someone else. And then there's some people in there who I never thought would be. um
I mean, do you consider those modern form of talk shows? Like I would consider Larry King,
hmm,
a bunch of those others, I would consider them being like the last era of like original talk shows. Then
yeah.
the Jimmy Fallons, the James Cordens, those aren't really talk shows. Those are more like newer age, fun, whatever you want to call. I mean, they're doing lip syncing competitions. That did not happen on a late night show.
And those are mainly for promotion. You go on those talk shows because you've just done a film or a TV show, or you've written a book, so you don't, whereas you didn't go on Larry, what was it? Larry Sanders? No, what
Well,
was
you
his
even
name?
had like people like the Colbert Report or all these other shows that came out. Now they were supposed to be like media or news, and I know people go, "Well, they're comedians, they're not news people." I was like, "Yeah, but they dress and pose as news people, and they give you the news in a comedic take. But if you look at it, they're still inserting their political bias into you. It would be like listening to a podcast about politics. You're getting that person's viewpoint, which a lot of people do, which I just think individual media, much like podcasts or anything like that, have completely disrupted the late night show, the TV segments, all the original old style reporting, because it was so profound for a while. But I don't like this era's stuff at all. I like before, when everyone was brainwashed into smoking cigarettes on, because that shit was
That's
fun, but it was weird. Because like I remember watching David Letterman sniff Jennifer Aniston's hair. And I was like, what does he think that's funny? Like Conan, once he left, everything went to shit.
Yeah, or it's like when Drew Barrymore flashed.
She's got her own show now and it sucks.
Oh, does she? Yeah. Well, they had an interesting comment about. I was watching an interview with a female comedian over here, and she was commenting on how you don't see women with late night shows. Women have day shows. Ellen has a day show. Drew
No,
Barrymore has a
the
day show.
fucking View is out
Yeah,
there. That thing needs to die.
but they're not on at night. They're on during the day. So they needs to die. So they have at night. She made a point. She goes, so what is it? What do these people think, that women just get tired in the evening and they wouldn't want to do the show, or so it kind of made sense in a way, but
I
it
think it's because there's a pornography issue about the people that will be watching it late at night.
uh there's also one of the she made a point. She said she was to the host she was talking to. She said, look, really the only way I'm going to get a late night show is if I grew a dick.
That is weird. Why is that?
And well, she just said basically she was saying I'm not a man. And it talks about like there's certain, as equal as we think we are in some ways, there's certain areas that people just don't touch. Like people have never went, why are there only late night men, late night men? And you go, and me being a white male, I haven't felt that oppression kind of thing. That's so I can. It's hard to comment. Like a lot of the things she was bringing up, I was going, "Oh, that's a good point," because and then I would go, "I never thought of that." Because why would I? Kind of thing. It's just, but whereas because she's in the entertainment industry and she's striving to do that, she thinks about it all the time. And I went, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get it." So that's
Yeah, but you've had to be typecasted at a certain point.
yes, yes. I what there was I remember auditioning for a villain for a very bad B film, and they were looking for like a mobster. And basically, what happens in the scene is I've kidnapped someone, I've tied her. It's a woman, and I've tied her to a chair, and uh, I'm yelling at her and screaming at her, and I think I hit her a couple times or something, which as you do in the really bad villain '80s movies. I pulled my best Sean Connery and slapped her on the face, whatever. But the uh, uh, the casting director went, "Yeah, that was really good, Casper." But and I went, "There's a but there." And she goes, "Yeah, it's like being beat up by a teddy bear. You're just not that guy." And I went, "What do you mean I'm not that guy? Like, did nothing that I just did prove?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, but I know you, so that's not you." And then later on, like that thing that I showed you, where the opening, I showed you my that VHS thing, which is really bad quality or whatever. But the first like minute and a half of that is me being that bad guy, the villain, because that was there to show all the casting people back in Vancouver that I could be a bad guy because I would never get cast as the bad guy because people always knew me as this guy who came in and laugh and and do some stuff and do the
Did you
scene.
did you have any footage on your computer that you could show?
It's all on, I think it's on LinkedIn on my computer. I don't know.
I want to pull up a clip, but I want to watch it
Yeah, you can watch it. Just but the what do you mean?
for the
Just oh you
podcast, not just me.
oh
God damn it!
oh you want to watch it?
That we're on
Oh
a show, Casper, not just talking.
I don't know how to show if something was in LinkedIn or if it was in WhatsApp. Would I just share my screen or something then, or
Yeah,
how
just
do I
make sure
do
the
that?
browser's open when you do it.
Yeah, my browser is
Make sure you share
open.
with sound too. How long
All
have
right.
you worked with Soho Voices?
Uh, oh, geez. 12 years now. I've been Soho Voices. They were first ones. I
When did
joined
the
up with.
hair go white? Because you were in that one clip, your hair was dark, and it just. I was about to say, if you hit me with that
Well,
5 years
no,
I've
no.
worked with
See,
them,
no.
I'd
See,
be
the thing
upset.
is, what they did was the guy from Soho Voices. He's like the publicity manager for Soho Voices, and he was looking for something else, and he found this clip of Dead Like Me. That clip is from 2003, the one where I'm telling the story of the bus driver, kind of thing. That's from 2003. And then my demo reel, the one I sent you, that's from 1999. So none of it is recent at all. You wanted to see, let me see if I can find it. I don't even know how I would share my screen
At the
with
bottom green arrow says share screen.
okay, just a second here. I'm going to show you all my all my dirty laundry and stuff. I don't know how to
Do you have any dirty stuff in there?
no. And let me see here.
You didn't just
Here's
bother filming yourself one time and cover yourself up
here's
in
a
peanut butter and let the dog just.
no dog would do that. Well, let me see if this is gonna fly. Okay. I don't know how this will work. Um, so I can get sound over there. Uh, so I don't know. So Zoom, uh, yeah, you've got me now, Mr. Technology. So there's a green arrow that says share screen.
At the bottom of your Zoom.
Oh yeah, there is. How's that?
Can't fucking miss it.
Yeah, I see that.
It's like where you're when you're turning on an I-89 or whatever, and it says turn here. You'd really
all
have
right.
to go out of your way to miss that one.
Well, this can you friend of mine? See, you can't see that at all. So I can oh, I have to hit share, don't I?
There we
Uh
are.
and so if I just went like it's too small, isn't it?
Just play it.
Flipping across this creek, got his ball snapped off by a sea turtle.
It's not playing through the actual thing though.
No, so I don't know how to do. Let's.
How many
Let's.
tabs you got open, my brother? Holy
Yeah,
shit. My
yeah. I
computer would
got.
have a stroke.
Yeah, I got a lot open. How do I unshare my as I'm
Just
sharing my
hit
life
stop
with the world?
share.
As I'm sharing my life with the world.
Top of Zoom, it says stop share.
Uh, See what it is I've got my computer is actually across the room, so I'm trying
Okay,
to
never
see
mind. We'll never do that again. Good Lord.
the. So I need to be prepared for that one. But yeah. Anyway, we'll do it next time. I'll be more prepared
There
for
is
that.
no next time.
There will be a next time. There'll be a next time for that one. But yeah, that was no, the stuff from Soho Voices was yeah, I looked at those and I went, yeah. Uh I pretty much went gray the day after I got married, so that was
That's great.
no, but it was a lot of fun doing that stuff, but I was lucky enough to get to do some crazy shit kind of thing, like ride a roller coaster 25 times in a row, or um the weird one that was totally on me was I think I don't even know if I mentioned it to you. I did a spot where it was a burger chain had just come out with these new hot wings, and
Oh, they
so
dress you up like the pink Incredible Hulk or whatever it was.
no, what they did was they put me on a bench. So it's the beginning of March in Canada. So in Vancouver. So it's like, I don't know, like 10, 11 degrees,
I was
maybe.
about to say negative 20 degrees.
No, it's flipping cold, but and I had to sit on this park bench in trousers, no shirt on, and my hair all done up. And I was supposed to look like that I'd sort of exploded and I was all burned. So they covered me with this dye from the waist up so that I'm purple, basically the color of like a grape. I'm purple from the waist up all the way, my entire upper body. And we do the shot and then we go into makeup after at the end of the day. And the makeup artist starts to try and take it off and it's not coming off. And she looks at it and it says right in big letters right at the bottom of the die, indelible. So I was the color of a fucking grape for 4 days while my skin. So imagine I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't do, you try and go out. Although I also did one where I dressed up as a woman. But they wanted basically like a drag queen. They wanted someone who could pass as a woman. It didn't matter if they were ugly or unattractive, because it's like the when they do play versions of like Cinderella, and you have the ugly stepsisters, almost always played by men. Or when you had Matilda, the evil gym teacher, played by a man, because they're looking for an ugly woman, unattractive woman. And so they wanted me to be like that ugly aunt,
Yeah.
and I'm doing a theater show, and basically what it was I go into the dressing room at the end and I'm taking off my makeup, and the product was the actual makeup remover. And it was a really cool idea, where you'd have, this is rather than just showing someone who just normally take off their makeup, they're showing someone who wears makeup every day because they're an actor and all this stuff. And so I I said to my sister, I went, I got to dress up as a woman. And she goes, oh, that's okay. I know lots of gay guys. And I went, what? And she goes, yeah, they're cross dressers too. Don't worry. So she found me shoes, a bra, dress, pillbox hat. And so so I'm fully kitted out. I go into the audition and I walk into the room, and the room is packed with absolutely stunning women in bikinis. Absolutely and there's me as and I kind of went, what the? And I look over, and the casting director sees me, and she started laughing, and she hid underneath the desk, and she's because she was laughing so hard, and I kind of leaned over and I went, Shelly, what's going on? And she goes, Casper, your audition is tomorrow. I had walked into a Coors Light calendar audition.
Did they hire you? I would have hired you right on the spot.
No, but I went. He when she went, your audition's tomorrow. I went, it's what? And at least one of the girls turned around and went, oh my god, that's a guy. so, so I walked out of there. And when I went back to the audition the next day, at least I knew. I didn't feel. Um, it was fun. It was a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
that type of stuff is just you gotta roll with that because I could have been so upset and I went, that was kind of funny, and none of these people are going to remember me or anything like that. They might remember the guy who walked in like that, but they're not going to, big deal. So I made an idiot of myself, but it was fun.
When did you like when you were a voice actor or when you were in acting, how were you passing your time? Did you get interested in any hobbies? Did you just focus on booking more gigs or
That's a good one. When I was an actor,
because when I've heard from the acting industry, it seems like every experience I've heard of someone struggling trying to make it has been about always basically no free time, but always looking for a role, always doing something, working a job so they can pay for their rent, so they can go for that role. But I'm curious if you had any hobbies or interests.
that's the thing. I was actually very into music at the time. I had a studio, um, but it was all like, so it was back before like computer digital stuff. So it was like all hardware crap. And when I got married, the I kept sort of my little studio and I used to just wear headphones kind of thing. I also got very addicted to online games.
No shit. What games?
Well, the first one was EverQuest, and then it was World of Warcraft. Just totally like,
World of
they call
Warcraft will suck you in, dude.
well, they don't call them marriage breakers for nothing. Because you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you hear, honey, are you coming to bed? It's like, yeah, I just got to get one more level. It's like, idiot, you just got, it was something to pass the time. There is that thing about,
I
uh,
still know all my old login
oh,
information.
I do as well, kind of thing. And the thing about those is you got to be really committed. It's sort of like voiceover work. There's a good friend of mine here, who, when she got an email from somebody saying, how long do I have to wait until I'm successful as you? And that pissed her off so badly. She went on to like Instagram or something. She goes, okay, let me sort this out for you right here. There is no waiting involved in this at all. She goes, if you want to do this, you got to put in the time. You got to be, she sent,
No, I get that, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think also it's about time and place. Sometimes you could
there
be like
is,
Jennifer Aniston and all them that hopped on Friends, and next thing you know, their life was basically
there is,
set.
there is time and place, but how did they get there? So this is the thing. This is the whole thing about, like, I know lots of people when I was in the business, I knew lots of people in the industry who weren't very talented, but they worked a lot. And that was a very frustrating thing. You had lots of situations where you'd have some up and coming actor who would show up on set and they hadn't even learned their lines. They hadn't done stuff. And you had people like Anthony Hopkins who used to be pissed at stuff like that. He would just, if you showed up on a set and you didn't know your lines, you would be you'd be getting stuff from that, so you had like the older pros who went through they were trained, you had the stuff, and then what was happening now is you have or then when now and then kind of thing. When I was doing it, you had a lot of people who weren't really trained. They some of them were hired because they were pretty or handsome guy, but they weren't really, they were like models and they wanted them to act. And sometimes you can't do both. Like, walking and chew gum it can be hard sometimes. It just is how they do it. But they nowadays it's even worse because you have influencers who are being cast in movies because they have followers. They're not actors at all.
Well,
But
it doesn't rely on skill anymore. It doesn't rely on talent because I've noticed this too. Like I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. I'm a big fan of his podcast and things of that sort. But I notice he gets guests that have a huge following. Like when Oliver Anthony created that song "Rich Men North of Richmond,"
yeah.
immediately he's on Rogan, which I think everyone suspected. But he did the same thing with Miley Cyrus. He did the same thing with a bunch of people, and those conversations did not go well. Like Miley Cyrus did not have a good interview on there. She was making fun of him, and they seemed like they weren't liking each other that much. Um,
Oh, is that who that was? I saw a clip of that interview, but I didn't recognize her.
well, she's like really into like RuPaul's Drag Race and dancing around, and Joe Rogan's more like, wait, is that a man type deal? And like they're trying to, and it's like I mean, Howard Stern did it too. I mean, when Howard Stern's career was going down the fucking shitter, he was just having people on that were trending and wanted to interview those people. And well, if you got the reach for it and people are willing to accept it, of course you're going to go after top priority guests. But to me, I started to notice that, like, even with influencers in movies, they're only doing it because they know that they're going to get that person's following to go see the movie. So that's just more views and more money in their pocket to crank out the next thing that they want to do. That's why you'll see documentaries about Logan Paul or his brother. There's one that just came out recently, I think, about his brother's rise to power and all that. And I was like, yo, he was on the Disney Channel doing the fucking Mickey Mouse drawing thing with the magic
Yeah,
wand.
and this is the thing. And you got like they had when you're dancing over into the influence market over here in the UK, they've got the Law and Order UK, and which transferred over okay kind of thing, in the show. So it's basically Law and Order's the same thing wherever you go, kind of thing, and
Bum 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 bum.
they had a particular story about
Bum 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 bum
they've
bum
arrested this
bum.
girl. uh,
You know
that's
that's the song.
I do.
If you've seen Ted, he goes, they try and sing over it, and he goes, I forgot what he goes. He goes, bum 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 bum. He goes, let's go do some law. Dun dun dun.
And that's what it is. But they had this particular show was about, there was a girl, she's probably 16, she's on with her mother, and she'd done something, I can't remember what she did, but she basically says to the lawyer, she goes, you don't want to arrest me or charge me for anything. And they went, and why is that? She goes, do you know how many followers I have? She goes, if you try and do anything, uh, I'll have them come after you, kind of thing. I can stop the fashion industry from doing this. I can cause millions of dollars in damage, and I saw where they were going with the show, and I went, what? Really is? But I suppose there is that element of some influencers may think they have that kind of power kind of thing. But it's a very odd culture we have now with the influencers, because you have a lot of people, particularly trolls, who look at them and go, you're not doing anything and you're making millions of dollars, but you're not working. But at the same time, yes, they are. They're sitting in front of their cameras and talking to you 8 hours a day and doing their stuff. So it's a different type of work. It's like if you're going to go that way and say they're not working, there's so many other jobs that we could go, well, they don't seem to be doing anything and they're being paid. So with influencers, um, it's a slippery slope in a way. Yeah. As soon as they started hiring influencers to be actors and stuff, it was like, no, 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 no. I thought it was bad enough when they kept doing all the remakes of all the. I was like, why are we remaking that show? No.
Influencers is another form of work, but it's more fragile than your actual job is, because you do have to go pay a company line there. That means you have to abide by the rules on the platforms and all this. And also, you don't know what could be censored and you get a video taken down. I mean, there's a guy, Joey Swole, who's just on TikTok and all these things with like 7.5 million followers that are just calling out bad gym etiquette. I mean, we don't know what trends. I mean, remember there was a brief amount of time for a little while where ASMR was the most popular thing out there. People just eating random things.
That was weird. That was,
But
where you
you don't ever hear about that anymore. There's never really any videos that come out about that. You have people that'll eat a bunch of food or hot wings and all that type of stuff, but you don't see as much ASMR, people rubbing things together with like sound. It's just you don't see that. What you see now is people using virtual reality and hopping into those and then getting like freak out reactions or getting something that causes people to be entertained by that.
yeah, there's a couple of cooking shows that I watch where they still do a bit of SMR stuff with their, with their zooming in on the pot and the sizzles and this kind of thing. But yeah, exactly right. And the in many ways, influencers have to be a bit more careful than, because they just need to say one thing. They're pulled, kind of thing. Those, I kind of laugh when you see those, like, you'll see a YouTube video, you'll go, Twitch streamer forgets the camera is on. No, no, that's not what happened.
Well,
Kind of
look
thing.
at like one of the most popular guys ever. What's his name? It's not Paul McCartney, it's the other guy. Oh man. Paul McCartney's from the Beatles. There's the other guy, I think it's his little brother or something. He was really popular in the 90s. Is it Jesse McCartney? You
Oh,
know who I'm talking about though, right?
yeah, I do. Yeah.
He's on his own OnlyFans and he just basically plays guitar in the nude. Like this guy was a like on every girl's poster or in their bedroom and all that type of stuff. He was a teen idol, and then now he's just on OnlyFans naked, strumming his guitar. He's like, "I got a new song to play for you," and everyone's like, "Buddy, it's not why we're here. Show me your dick." That's like what the comments are on his OnlyFans. He knows it, but he's just cranking out
Yeah.
songs still.
It's like, okay, are you going to play the song? Move the guitar.
Yeah, play it behind
Yeah.
your head.
Yeah. Well, it's, man, what, talk about, when OnlyFans, you can see OnlyFans coming, kind of thing, when, when it, and, but at
You can
least,
make bank on there.
but at least with OnlyFans, you know what it is. Like they used to have like the college girl rooms, or the, whatever rooms. Watch us, live our day, and it was just people,
God, how
you'd watch them get
fucking
up and,
boring is that shit? She's doing her taxes. I couldn't watch that. I
oh,
can't do that
she,
shit.
look, she's brushing her teeth. She's brushing her teeth, and you kind of go, "What is this? What am I watching?" But they used to set up like it would be it was a set with different rooms, and they would go in, and the now, at least with OnlyFans, you know exactly what it is. It's like, you know,
Well, that's interesting because like that whole thing of like call girls and all those where you talk to a girl on the phone, it's the reason why it's not illegal to record somebody in Vegas on the phone.
that's interesting.
That's the only state that has that.
Uh, you'll
It's the
be
same thing with cops. There was a big issue. Remember cops when it got canceled and then they brought it back? Yeah, well, they brought it back because a number of people were pissed off. But you don't technically have to get somebody's permission if it's live television.
also, yeah, there's when they talk about, the that was on the other day, the expectation of privacy. There's certain areas that you're in where you cannot expect privacy at all, kind of thing, where you are. And sometimes with those phone calls, like OnlyFans, for example, OnlyFans is going to change a lot.
You're gonna get fucked with taxes. That's what's
Well,
gonna
no,
happen.
the what's going to happen is AI. As so you're going to have some lonely guy in Alaska or Idaho or wherever, or girl, whatever, and or in between, and who's going to be phoning up something. Like you can actually tell, you could phone up, contact the site, and you could say, this is what I want the person to look like. This is who I want to talk to, and then that person is going to be able to talk to you.
The
And
technology's not there for that yet.
no, well,
I tried to do that for my 1500 episode,
yeah,
which was
but I
recreate
know, but
myself.
we're only a couple years away from that kind of
I
thing.
think
But
you got a good 10, 20 years. The technology so far not it's not that AI isn't there. It's just that we don't have screens or things in a normal household to be able to create that and put that on to every single home. What we'll probably get before AI is digital twins. That'll happen, which is just complete replicas of whatever um thing it's looking at. So it could be you. I mean, they just did it recently with one of the islands in the Caribbean. is supposed to be completely submerged by like the next 5 years they're
Oh, right,
expecting.
right, right. Yeah.
So what the guy, he went on television, like the main mayor of the town or whatever, talked about how they're going to digitally twin it, which is just take photos and map every single scale part of the island, and then they're going to put it in a digital simulator, so then people can put on VR headsets and go explore the island, even though it's no longer inhabitable.
That's kind of cool. Like you'll be
Yeah,
able
but
to
do
do
you
the
like that?
Titanic.
Just that's such a dangerous, everything's Pandora's box. You don't want to do that because if you let that happen or let that be a possibility, it's like, okay, it's fine if that goes away because we'll just digitally twin it. And I'm like, yeah, but does that not incentivize you to just like fucking throw McDonald's wrappers out your window and be a piece of shit because you're like, oh, we'll digitally twin it. It'll be fine in fucking 20
Well,
years.
well, even then, like I'm reading a book right now, set quite far in the future. It's about settlers in another galaxy kind of thing. The Earth is dead or whatever. And but one of the things that
Great.
happens,
When?
uh, well, I well, who what when? Oh, when does it happen? Oh, hundreds of years from now.
Okay.
But the issue that they have is VR. You'll have certain places where people are so immersed in VR that nothing's getting done. So no, like there's no repairs being done to the ship, blah blah blah, because people are locked into VR. So in one instance, you have a captain. She comes along and she she confiscates everyone's VR headsets, and she goes, "None of this, none of this," and she goes, "You have to prove to me that you can actually live your life." And you've got shit to do and do your chores and do your job on the ship, and if you do, I'll give you these back for a certain time of day, which is interesting because that's how many shows have we watched, whether it's a Star Trekky or whatever type of sci-fi show where that happens, or The Matrix. I mean, we're right down to, in essence, we're living somewhere else. So people are trying to escape where they are now, so they get into VR and just stay there, and they don't do anything. Well, Ready Player One kind of thing, where you have people who would rather be there than in real life, and we're a few years away from that, but there are going to be people who are going to try and escape that way kind of thing. And so you have to ask yourself what's going to happen to society then if we're like there's or who's going to do it first, kind of thing. Is it the poor or is it the middle class? Who are going to be the one, or the extremely wealthy? Are they
I don't
going to
think
be the
it's going to
ones?
hit there yet. I think it's going to recreate dead loved ones first. Which I mean, we're doing that technically now. Like some people, like for you, for instance, you might have a picture of your grandfather, a black and white photo or something like that. But for my kids or my grandkids, they're going to have hours of content that they can just use and put into a machine. I forgot what the guy's name is. He's basically been trying to bring his dad back to life because he lost his dad at such a young age, and he's got all these like things of his dad's, not just like a pocket watch or anything, like recordings and things of that sort. So he's trying to get this AI to recreate it to basically immortalize his dad through a machine. So the and some people we have basic versions of that now. There's a video game out there where it'll have like if you're playing the same race you've already raced, it'll have a ghost racer, and the ghost racer happens to be this one kid's dad, and his dad's no longer with him. So every time he tries to basically race his dad, he's like just playing video games with him. Now imagine that, but imagine that there's video footage that an AI can recreate your father and then have a set responses like how your dad would normally respond based on the hours of content you upload. Like I said, it's going to be more of like the people that are putting their whole lives online. Like, I mean, if you have a friend that posts like 50 times on Facebook a day, then that AI is going to have like, you're going to ask it a question like, Dad, it's so nice to see you. Then the Facebook AI goes, can't find phone. You're like, hold on a sec, Dad, it's me, your son. Where's good recommendations for crabs? I don't know, like something like that, some stupid shit like that.
Well, no, I could because I got a good friend of mine where I imagine that if they went by his Facebook stuff, like I remember when Facebook first came out, but if they went by his Facebook posts, I would think there's a guy who loves his broccoli because he used to post shit
About
like,
broccoli?
well, no, he used to post left the house, entered the store, bought some broccoli, brought broccoli home. Like he just is Facebook to
He's
him
like
was like this.
journaling it.
Yeah, but that's so every time it was like, he would go to for him, that's what Facebook was. It was like a journal. He would go, "This is what I'm doing today, and I'm going to tell people what I'm doing all day."
Well, that's
So
what like
his,
Twitter is technically.
are we still allowed to call it Twitter?
It's he calls it X because it's good publicity for his Tesla and all that type of stuff. But Twitter now, I mean, Twitter's a great place if you want to see people's like research and their work and stuff like that, especially like with the algorithm I follow. But I come across all these people with like they're just getting into fights more than I do on Facebook. And I'm like, that's why I don't like going on social media. I just don't think it's good
Yeah,
for
Twitter is one of those odd things where you got uh it's yeah, it's one of these. I try not to get into Twitter flame wars at all. Like you sometimes you have to watch what you post. It's even bad. Sometimes you'll comment on like a YouTube video, and all of a sudden it's like, you can sense the heat coming at you, and you're like, I just made a comment. That's all I comment. And I remember back in the day, like World of Warcraft used to be like that. There was a couple forums that you used to go to talk. Now that was a different type of thing. Like you played the game, and then outside of the game, there was these forums that you would go to express your dissatisfaction about the game, or something was going on, like somebody was like, like spawn camping or something, and so you get into that, you're upset, and so you would go to these sites, and your clan or your guild would have their own like web pages, and you would go to their web pages and you need to look up the forum, and you get into those like flame wars with somebody, but things that weren't really discussed in game. And I don't know, like I never got into Fortnite or anything like that, so I don't know if they discuss things like that, because there were exploits and metas that happened. There's nothing, in many ways, there's nothing worse in a game where all of a sudden somebody discovers a meta and then everybody's doing that.
Do you
So
think that those RPG games are good for a kid? Like, do you think that's an important time for a kid's life?
that again is a very interesting topic. I think they can be good for coordination and things,
I
and
meant specifically mental wise, like not talking about like reflexes and things of that sort, because you do eventually come across some things like World of Warcraft. You can have sex in the game. You can have sex in a lot of these different types of RPG games. You can basically do a lot of human functions. It's like, I mean, it's like the question of Sims. You start a family, you get a job, you get this type of stuff, you build your house, you do whatever, you get a wife, you get whatever you want. That's kind of you look at it like what age. I mean, they say it's supposed to be over 18, but I think everyone knows that's just
well,
bullshit
this
because
is the
most
thing. I
kids
mean,
have
we
that before they are. I'm going to finish my sentence before
I
you
know
come.
you are, yeah.
But um most kids have that game before the age of rating the thing. So I mean, you look at like what damage does that do? Are those giving those kids important life skills?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. The only point I was going to say was, if I go back to my childhood, um we didn't really have computer games. The same thing with books. You had to be careful about what book you gave your child. Are books evil? No, they're not at all. But if you give a child a book that's outside of their comprehension level, they could turn the page and they're reading about sex. Now they won't understand it because they're reading it, and so it's an intellectual thing. Whereas if you're playing a video game and you see it, like you see naked people, but again, it's usually a fantasy version of what they're gonna see, kind of thing. The Those type of games that have that in there, like like Baldur's Gate 3, for example. Oh my god. Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, you can have sex with a bear. And that was one of the selling points of the thing, because you're one of the characters is a druid and he turns into a bear. and, and there's everyone is always trying to jump everyone's bones in that game. It's really the people at Larian Studios are really funny that way, because the the sexuality is like right out front. So Baldur's Gate 3 is not for children.
Well,
It's
I don't
at
think
all.
I know people bring up the point that video games cause violence and all that, and I've had many academics that have different varying views on that one. I don't think it does. I think it braces people for a lot of things that obviously they're probably not really going to come in. You're not going to come in contact with like Grand Theft Auto style shit in real life, hopefully. But when it comes to like before you, when you went to a game store, you would have to have a parent or guardian or whoever that was over 18. Like, are you sure you want to give this to your kid because it has this, 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 and this? Well, now kids are, when they're on their Xbox, you buy games online. since going in person into a store. Most of the time, their date in there is like 20 years older than they actually are. And they're just buying games that have the worst possible content uploaded into it and just being exposed to so much where it's like there's not really a way to reel it back, but all it does is push society forward. Sooner or later, we're not going to have such big scandals. I mean, look how the French view our sex scandals in politics. They laughed at us about the Bill Clinton issue. And it's like eventually we're just going to be like that, where like we're don't care about. I mean, the words you say now on TV, back to the original point that we started off with, that you couldn't say like pussy, you couldn't say any of these words on television. Now, what you can't talk about is just certain stigmatized topics. You can't talk about gender. You can't talk about race. You can't talk about JFK. You can't talk about anything controversial that's unless it's the official narrative, where it's like now we don't even have taboo words. We have taboo topics.
And wasn't that interesting? Like that's a fantastic point because now back in the day, you're right. There were certain words that we consider taboo. Like I used to, one of the things that used to drive me crazy, even as a kid watching it, was you'd see like Battlestar Galactica, the original Battlestar Galactica from the 70s. Now the original Battlestar Galactica from the 70s was almost a direct ripoff of Star Wars because one of the characters they were even named Luke and Han in battles, and they had to change their name to Starbuck and Apollo. Like those are just bizarre names, you know. Now then again, you've got another character who smokes. You have Starbuck, he smokes, and they had this thing they used to say all the time. He would, you know, if something went wrong, he'd go, "Oh, frack," and I remember thinking to myself, it's still a swear. Just because we don't understand that word in another language, that's still a swear. So does that mean that if somebody comes here from Poland and they swear in Polish and I don't understand Polish, that means he's not swearing? No, he's not. So that was one of the things, like if you give a word the connotation of this is a swear word, it's still a swear word. It's still a taboo word. That's the whole point. And so now we went through that whole, you know, saying bitch and hell and God, you know, you couldn't say those things. And now you get in trouble for calling someone he or she, and you're like, what the hell happened? Like, where did this happen? You know, there's an odd thing going on there, kind of thing, where um I think our priorities are a bit askew. Uh, to answer your question, when you came in, you said, do you think that video games cause violence? I don't think video games cause violence. What causes violence is non-supervision. So if you leave a child alone long enough where they are racking up your credit card, like there's that story just recently, what was it? $64,000 this child had racked up purchasing items on her mobile game kind of thing. If you are not paying attention to your child to the point where she spends 64,000, she spends your pension basically, but she's not doing it all at once. They're never going to allow, like, she wasn't making purchases for like 8,000 pounds or $8,000 at a time. You know, we're talking like months worth of purchases that the parents they didn't even notice that was disappearing.
I know, but I got to rationalize with that because I didn't have a job before I had the podcast. I didn't have a job during winter.
Yeah.
No way, no way. I had a job during winter. I was working at a hotel at the time, and I literally my rent was nothing. My rent was probably like maybe $200, or no, I think I wasn't even paying rent where I was staying at. I was staying with a family, and I was still I graduated high school early. So when I graduated, I was a year younger than everybody. So I think I was 17 years old my summer of my senior year. So usually most kids are 18 moving out on their own, and I must have just turned 18 that winter, and I had a job, but I still wasn't paying rent. So I was just saving it all. And I was putting all this money in my account, never going out and doing anything, just kind of working, going home, going to the gym, working, going home, going to the gym, doing that over and over again. Where I remember this, like, and this is one of my favorite RPGs, RuneScape. I was playing that. I got my wood cutting to level 99. I got my fishing to level 99. That shit takes forever. But I remember at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I had 2 hours left until I had to go to work. I had just gotten back from the gym and had my protein shake little breakfast thing. And I remember I was on one of these sites. I was like, how do I get RuneScape Gold? You can buy it. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I went to this site. They said type in my phone number. I typed in my phone number and all that. And then an unrestricted call popped up on my cell phone at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I grabbed it. I go, hello. And they're like, is this? And they said my username. And I said, yeah. And they hung up the phone. And then I got a text that said, meet at the bank in the game. And I was like, what the fuck is that? What did I just sign up for? And I went to that bank. A person tried to trade with me. They had nothing on them. And then all I see is the money, the thing I paid for, 10 million gold.
Oh my
And I
God.
got it. I put it in my bank account. I changed all my passwords and I never answered the phone if they would ever even think about calling. I just kind of, left my phone on silent. But to me, it was the weirdest thing. It was like a drug deal.
Well, that, yeah, see, that was a you had that was a private player trying to sell you gold. So it wasn't actually the game itself. So that wouldn't have been, that's very interesting. That's so that's it reminds me of the Everscape. People used to auction
And when I
stuff on
log
eBay.
into the game, I still see the gold in my bank account because I never touched it after that. I thought there was like, I can't spend it all in one spot or they'll know I cheated, that type deal.
Exactly. Well, even then you didn't really cheat. Like somebody, well,
Well, I'm just surprised at my friends that still get addicted to that stuff. I remember one of my first episodes I was going to do before when the podcast was finally created. Um, I was going to have my buddy Eric Davis on. I'm friends with his brother Rob. Rob's been on the show way back in the beginning. His brother Eric we never got a chance to, but it was around the time Pokemon Go came out. And he was really interested in talking about Pokemon Go because it sucked back in a whole generation of people into playing video games again. And I don't, my first couple of years, especially in the house I'm living in right now, first couple of years here, I was big into World of Warcraft. I mean, that was when the podcast was at like episode 100 or something. That's all I wanted to do was like, I'll got a break for an hour to record a podcast. I'm getting right back to World of Warcraft. But then I just snapped out of it. It just, to me, you're just mindlessly playing into something. And we talk about the people that really go full on out into it. A kid growing up that I used to hang out with all the time. He's kind of like a family friend, close cousin, I would call him. His dad constantly, every time I went over their house, had the triple screens lined up, had the World of Warcraft playing on the thing, had doing I mean, 24/7. That guy did not sleep. I was like, what's his job? What does he
he's doing the
do?
raids and all that kind of stuff. And you're like,
Yeah, and he's like, I mean, he still plays it now. He's been like playing for like I think almost like 30 years now. Had every single DLC when it came out, had all the memorabilia, had $1,000 worth of stuff. And I'm just like, I mean, that's another person's life, and I get it, especially after you have kids and everything, and you're just kind of like, whatever.
you're talking about World of Warcraft, but look at the people who got addicted to like Candy Crush or Cookie Clicker. Click
Jesus.
this, and
One
you're
of the
not doing.
housekeepers at my old work, she was like my sixth episode on her. She was like 2,000 something on Candy Crush. I was like, Jesus, how do you have the time?
Well, exactly. So they're taking the time. So just like you, where they're like, I just need to finish these dishes and then I can get back to Candy Crush. And all they're thinking about is moving up to the next level and going on to the next level. And there's a certain, it's that whole dopamine stuff that you get from leveling up. It's why RPGs work so well, where it's like, I just need a couple more gold coins and I can buy myself some leather breeches. Yeah, that's all I need is it just goes through. And it's like, when you have, and then you have games like Rust, which were, you had people, getting out the survival games. Like, what's with the survival games? I never really got into those, but where I don't need to play a game that's going to make me sweat. I don't I don't want to play a game where the game is telling you you're dying.
when I
You're starving. I'm like, what the fuck?
when I was in college, and I was doing those chemical dependency classes, there was a person in there for one of the addiction classes, and it was like a group thing. It wasn't just alcohol and all that. It was just whatever people were addicted to, wanted to talk about some of the stuff. Most people were talking about like, I was addicted to drinking and all this. I was addicted to cigarettes, and I would have sucked dick for coke, like shit like that I was hearing. And then this one guy was like, I'm addicted to playing video games and I just feel like my life's going down the shitter. And then like all these people just stared at him. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like that guy just said he was addicted to sucking dick for coke. I was like, and you come in here saying that you're addicted to playing RPG games. And look, I get addiction. I can sympathize. I understand that 100%. But like, I don't know. To me, it was just like, I mean, you're like, it's why I'm so anti-pot. I know people would think like I just found out my boss, he was like, because I was telling him, I was like, I want to work for the city and all that. Um, and he was like, you can't smoke weed if you work for the city. I was like, I don't smoke weed. He's like, Robbie. I was like, I don't smoke weed. He's like, come on, man. You don't need to lie to me, dude. And I was like, I swear to God, I don't smoke weed. He goes, dude, everybody asks, like friends of mine that work there as well, too, like the trainer Dan that works there. And Dan's like, no, Robbie doesn't smoke weed. And everyone's like, there's no way. His personality, he's got to smoke weed. He's got to get high or something. I was like, and they're like, no, that's his personality, 100%. And everyone, I guess, just thought I was a stoner for the longest time. I was like, I was in high school, I was a stoner, but not now.
How does
And
that make you feel, man? That's
it made me
like,
feel like shit. I was like, damn, I don't really, do I really say that bad of things or whatever random
well,
topics?
it's kind of like, so everyone thinks I'm stoned. Awesome.
But the issue I have with pot is that like people do get addicted to it. And like I have family members that smoke it all the time and they're like, it's legal, it's legal. But then you hear when they're like sober and they're like, they either want to get high or they talk about how their life's been on freeze.
Yeah, I mean, the people who wake up at like 5 o'clock, first thing they do in the morning is like, fill up the pipe or the bong, and you go, what? It just, although everyone has their own.
I get it, but it hinders your memory. It's like alcohol. You wake up the next day from alcohol, you're like, what the fuck did I do yesterday? You weren't drunk, you weren't blackout, but your memory just is not soaking in anymore of that information. And it's like everyone's using some form of stimulant to get through the day, whether it's a coffee, whether it's something, there's something that gets you motivated. That's why it's so interesting to me that people that say that they're high on life. And I was like, what does that mean though? Like, what do you mean you're high on life? I like to go see a sunrise and a sunset. I was like, well, you're not stimulating yourself. You're not really doing anything, but you are wasting time technically.
It depends. I mean, there's a certain level. Now, 5 years ago, I would have disagreed with that statement. Now, the way things are going, like the amount, depending on the motivation you have to go watch that sunset kind of thing, can almost be that whole thing. Like you get there, and it's a very difficult feeling to describe, but you're staring and you're going, okay, I made it through another day. This is awesome. Like kind of thing. Or, this, you're just happy to be where you are at that moment. Because maybe you've had a shitty life, or maybe all this stuff, or maybe you've just changed your way around. Maybe you're a recovering alcoholic, or,
Yeah.
whatever. So you're just living each day. And as you end each day, you're just happy as spit to be where you
Yeah, but
are
I don't
right
see,
now.
I don't agree with those 12-step groups either.
No, yeah, well, see, I don't know. See, I've never done one. I can't be,
See, I
see,
have a friend that is in the 12, was in the 12-step thing. That thing is like a cult, man. Their one of their main things is that you need to cut out all bad influences into your life. That means people. So if you have a friend who's a bartender, you can't be friends with them anymore. And look, I get it from like a really sensitive aspect thing, but that's really shitty, especially if they've been a friend of yours for a very long time. And it's like now you can't even associate with that. Like my buddy dated my friend and he was like, yeah, it's a cult, man. They literally cutting out every bad thing. That means you can't be around cigarettes, you can't be around it. That means if you have a friend who's a smoker, they're no longer your friend. I'm like, that's like a burn it all mentality. I was like, you can't avoid that. That's not a way to live. You're not going to be able, you should be trained to be able to be around it and not want it. That's healing. That's the correct way to do it. But you can't avoid cigarettes your whole life. You can't avoid alcohol your whole life. It doesn't mean you need to do it, but you're going to smell a cigarette. Someone's going to come in after smoking one outside or something. It doesn't mean that person is now forever dead to you.
yeah. That's no, that's an interesting thing. Like, I mean, I've gone through lots of those programs where, I mean, I do it myself, where I go, where you're like cutting dead weight from the past or something, and so you go, well, there's somebody I don't need to associate with anymore. But then there's the ones where you're so militant about it that, yeah, you're cutting off, and you go, are you are you trying to live in a bubble? Because that's not gonna work. Is it? I mean,
Well, imagine someone with a video game addiction. It's like you can never go in a Best Buy again. You can never go anywhere where there's more than one TV set
you
up.
can't you yeah, if you had a video game addiction, you constantly see ads about video games. If you have a phone, your phone, comes with a lot of those stuff. It'd
You
be
have to
it
go
you
back to the Amigo thing with only 4 calls that you can call, an emergency one.
That's right. Oh, I forgot all about those, man. Oh gosh.
That's one of the, I think they have a phone out like that that they're trying to push back in there, which it only has like it has music, it has podcasts, and then it has calls, but then you can't do anything else with it. And I was like, there's going to be some people out there that are going to want a phone that won't give them the urge to go on social media. You know, my friend recently cut off all of her social media, and it's just interesting because she's like, no, I don't want to go on it anymore. I'm happier without it. I'm like that a little bit too. I'm starting to now enter this. I mean, I was like that. I really never liked being on my social media that much anyway, but my personal account is like friends on there and stuff like that, which is fun. But you just kind of realize there's like, you're just kind of doing nothing
Do you find yourself though, like for me, I almost feel better that I have the social media stuff is there.
because you have a business though.
Well, no, but I mean, no, what I mean is I feel if I decide to not use it, I don't delete all the programs. I just say I'm not going to use it. Now, some people would go, well, the temptation is there, kind of thing. But for me, I look at that and go, it's there and I'm not using it because I have power over you, kind of thing. And it allows me to go, but I don't want to delete immediately go, well, I'm not using Instagram. I'll just uninstall all that stuff, kind of thing, and because it means that what you could do later on is you could wean yourself back on where you do it like once or twice a week if you wanted to just keep in touch, but you don't. For me, I like to be able to go, if I was going to stop cold turkey, I just go, well, stop. It's either, it depends. We happen to live in a society where if you're cutting out all of social media, it can be kind of difficult because there are certain things that happen because of social media. So you need some access to that social media. It's just the way maybe it's the way your friends communicate or something. Or now, does that mean you need different friends then? I don't know. Like the hard part about that is the way that society coming up now is evolving. We're evolving into using social media as that,
well, it's going
as
to be the only thing eventually.
yeah. You don't like, when's the last time I don't get phone calls from people anymore?
I get phone calls.
I get messenger messages and WhatsApp
I
calls.
don't check those. That's why people have to call me.
But well, there you go. See, that's the thing. Like I can't, like the last time I had a,
When someone sends me a link in a messenger, I'm like, that's just how people click it. And the next thing you know, their fucking account's hacked.
well, usually if I'm getting a phone call from somebody, they're scamming me.
Exactly.
so, so if I'm getting a phone call from somebody, I just go block.
Or even worse, they're asking you to help them move.
Yeah, that's a scam in its own. Yeah. Do you remember when you said you'd help me? Did I say that?
Did I say that? Oh shit.
And they're like, "Oh
Never thought you were
yeah,"
gonna call that favor in.
and it's like, "Yeah, you did. Do you want to hear the recording?" No, that's okay. Thank you very much. You recorded me telling you I'd do it. Yeah, just for safety. I posted on social media and go, this fucker said he would help me, and now he's not.
Do you think that if you had to reset your like acting career back to when you first started, do you think if you tried to get into it in today's time, do you think you'd be able to be more successful or less successful?
Holy crap. I would be less successful, I think.
I think it's damn near impossible now.
Yeah, it's a very interesting that's an awesome question because the um back when I started in Vancouver, everybody was an actor. You're the guy who drove the taxi, the person selling your coffee, the guy behind the counter at the 7-Eleven. Everybody was an actor. And it wasn't for like my ex-wife at the time, she didn't put up with shit like that at all. She would say there was this one girl I remember we went to it was where she worked, and I was picking her up at work. And the receptionist where she worked was like, yeah, I hear you're an actor. And I said, yeah. And she goes, yeah, so am I. And I Rachel turned around and went, you're not an actor. And she goes, yes, I am. And Rachel was like, so what have you done? Well, I take classes. So you want to be an actor. You're training to be an actor, but you're not an actor. Well, she goes, until you book a job and you get paid, you are not an actor. So stop telling people you are an actor. And she just turned around and walked away. And I got where that was I was like, I was like, really sorry, that was really harsh. But there's a lot of people like that people who just because they wanted to be in the business told people that's what they did. And um so there was that whole, like, I had no desire to go down to like LA for like um pilot season where all the new TV shows and stuff are going on. I didn't want to. And the amount of pressure, you're right, man, to the amount of people who want to be on this side of the camera kind of thing. That's just nuts. It's just crazy kind of thing. In many ways, when I tell people, I used to think it was really cool. I'd be sitting in a pub or a bar, and somebody goes, "So what do you do?" "Hey, I'm an actor." "Really?" And then they go, "What have you done? Have I seen you?" That happens, and then so you have to start going, "Well, I was in this thing. I was in this thing." Um, are you in anything now? No. Oh, okay. Whereas now, if I tell people I do voiceover work for television, they just go, "Wow, that's really cool." But not many people go, "Have I heard you?"
It's
It's a
like with
very odd.
it's like with the podcast stuff where people go, "Oh, you got to," like someone finds out I have a podcast. "Oh, where can I listen to it?" I'm like, "Just fucking Google it." Like Christ, I never have that many, and to me that question always gets me. That's why I never ever bring it up. But like I had there was my buddy Dan. He trains a client who has his own podcast. A couple of them actually. There's two clients he trains. One is one that has like 30 million followers on Instagram, and he bought them. He bought them. They're not real. But he always tries to sales pitch his podcast to people at the gym. And one of the guys who knows me, because I know the same crew of people that come into the gym like every morning and like, "Hey, what's up, Robbie?" Like they give me Christmas cards and shit, which is nice. It's awesome. But one of them goes, his name's Billy, comes up to me, goes, "Hey, you ever listen to that guy's podcast?" And I go, yeah. And he goes, "Is it good or anything?" And I'm just like, he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "It's just not my style." He's like, "What do you mean? What's your style?" I go, "Well, he does a podcast about motivation. They're 15 minutes long, and it's all like he interviews a guest who goes, 'What motivated you to do this? What motivated you to do that? What motivated?'" And that's trendy. But he goes, "Yeah, I just listened to it. It wasn't that good." I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "What about your podcast?" I was like, "You probably won't like mine, to be 100% honest with you." And he goes, "Why?" I go, "Because I talk to a range of people about random topics and things of that sort that interest me. And you seem like you're more of a political left person. And I'm not really, don't think you would vibe too well with a lot of the JFK conversations I have." And he goes, "Well, I'll give it a listen." And I never heard back from him. But I like that's the thing for me is like
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that are doing something and they think that their thing has to be the only thing and then it has to be the best thing. I'm more like, yo, fucking, there's so much out there at this point. You just got to have fun with that shit. I'd rather be
yeah.
happy and have a good conversation and do things that make the day go by easier than worry so much about trying to create something that probably won't even break the fucking surface anyway.
That's the thing, man. And when you have so many people who, they in my business, they used to say, you go to an audition, and there's 200 people in the room. That means 199 of you are not going to get that job, kind of thing. So that was the nature of the business, and
Start
it's a
breaking throats.
yeah, it's a really weird, exactly breaking throats and like you're not
Take
going
him
it.
out like Patrick Swayze. Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. That's right. The dreaded I shouldn't use this move ever because I've used it once before. Where did he crush the guy's throat with it? Yeah. Anyway.
Honestly, if I could be born in a different time period, I'd love to be on one of those like mysterious shows, like the ones where they're investigating claims of like Bigfoot or something like that.
What was the big one?
I would
The
start smoking weed again. I would hop in
Yeah,
an RV and just
with
start searching.
Rod Steiger. Unsolved Mysteries. That was what it was. Where he tonight on Unsolved Mysteries. That guy, they were. I loved that show, where because some of the mysteries weren't that mysterious, but they had their Bigfoot ones and they had their alien ones, but anything could have been a mystery on that show. They did a lot of their unsolved mysteries were crimes, anything where they were looking for the crimes. But I loved that shit. I just thought that was fantastic.
Well,
I mean,
everybody has some type of interest in like the paranormal, the mysterious, the conspiracy, the this. It's just about finding what is that certain thing. Like my friend who's an underwater archaeologist loves to look into the Bermuda Triangle and loves the kind of myths and the stuff around that. There's plenty of people that have an interest in something. I mean, one of my favorite shows that is no longer around in the form that I like it in, which is Coast to Coast AM. It was a radio show back in the day when Art Bell ran it, and they would just interview like some Madam Fate would call and start reading a fortune online or whatever the hell it is, but it would be in people's cars and people would tune in while they're driving down the highway or whatever, like 3 o'clock in the morning. You listen to a guy telling his UFO experience or UAP experience or whatever you wanted to call it. I'm like, everyone has that interest of like, hey, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. This is all. I mean, look at the History Channel. At 1 o'clock in the morning, they basically spent the whole day showing you how the pyramids were built brick by brick by brick. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, there's like a shift change. And then it's like a UFO building the pyramids. And you're like, what the fuck happened to the rest of the day that we just spent watching these people lay these
That's
bricks down?
right. Aliens. That's right. And I watch, and those guys, the talking heads on the History Channel, and when I am on those shows, they're like, and these aliens, they came down and they were like high, and they
Hmm.
did this shit where you wouldn't believe it, man.
Gary Busey was there. He could tell you all about it.
Exactly. And you go, you're right. You're watching the show and you go, okay, there's been a tonal shift in programming here.
Do you believe? I don't think I've ever asked you this, but do you believe in the UAP stuff that's going on?
I'm sort of a believer in there's so much shit going on that we don't understand, like as far as like, ghosts and all that stuff. I believe in the paranormal. Aliens, I believe there's intelligent life out there. But I also believe that if they watched any of our television, they're like, we're not going down there. Are you kidding me? But there's so much shit from the past that is very difficult to explain, like the pyramids, like all the different, like the big where you have those big pictograms in the desert where you can only see them from like a certain height, like a plane kind of thing, and where it's like people did not have the technology to do that shit. Now I can imagine stuff like I can imagine the aliens came down or whoever it was, and you have the Egyptians, and then you have the Incans and the Mayans and the Aztecs, and then they're watching and they're sitting up there, they're circling the planet. They're going, yeah, everyone's doing it. Oh my God, did you see the blood sacrifice? Oh, that's it. We're taking away their toys, all of them. Come on, you. And then they just and they because everybody always goes, what happened to the Aztecs? Where did they go? That the aliens came down and went, we give you some stuff, and this is what you guys do. Blood sacrifice. Come here. We're going back. But I don't want to go. Yes, we're going back. And so they just left them. And so so we have these lovely calendars like the Aztec calendar that's supposed to be predicting the end of the world, which
Oh, it's the
didn't happen.
Mayan calendar.
But even then, all that stuff, those guys, the pyramids that they built.
I just think they were doing too many drugs.
Well, even things like Stonehenge, where you look at where it's lines up, um, it's an astrological calendar kind of thing, and it's lined up with the moon and all this stuff, and they didn't have the tools to move these things, to quarry these things. They just didn't have the shit back then. So how did they do it? So some of that stuff is like, how did they do it? And
What was the other one? There was another one that got blown up recently. Remember that?
I think, well, recently there was one of the pyramids. Somebody did it's like a radar scan. It's a different type of, how they, CSI or something, they're looking for they'll do like a radar scan of the ground kind of thing to look for bodies and things like that, underneath it. And the Horatio will be standing there with his sunglasses and saying, I think we found our body, but they did a deep scan of one of the pyramids and found another structure underneath it that's never been found before. So they haven't been able to get into it yet, but they've seen underneath that at least one of the pyramids goes down another, like, quite the distance kind of thing. And so there's a whole bunch of tunnels and more shit down there that nobody knew was there. And that type of stuff is it's interesting. Technology will be able to do that for us. I don't know which pyramid it was, but there's that type of thing where you have that. And then with the,
No, there was it's not a pyramid. It's
are you
a
talking like the like alien stuff? Now when you talk about,
Christ. Can I say it first?
no, you can't.
No, of course not. Uh, no, but there was an actual like pillar thing that got blown up. They think it was a government that blew it up, but what was written on the actual little not pyramid, but pillar, it's in the States. It's not anything like that's in another country. But when the explosion went off on it, what the thing said on it was that the government will try and control you. George, it said a bunch of 1984 George Orwell style stuff about the government controlling you. They're buying that's what this giant pillar had always been there. This was around the time when you saw those little triangle pillar things popping up in different locations, and people were thinking that it was alien, but it was a hoax. This thing exploded. I'm trying to remember because I remember Kelly said it, and I was trying to figure out what his process was. Well, why did he think this? But I can't remember what the name of
I
it is.
remember, yeah, I remember when that first appeared, and it was just like hikers found this
Yeah,
pillar, and so they took a selfie with it. They're like, hey, and then they went back the next day or
Google
something,
it.
and it was gone. They went back a couple days later with some friends, and it was gone. So then it was found somewhere else, and it was just moving around the United States, I think. And I'm trying to think of, yeah, and it was English words on it, was on the pillar, wasn't it? It wasn't in like Viking
Georgia
ruins.
Guidestones. That's what it was. The Georgia Guidestones near Iberton, GA. On Wednesday, the authorities say unknown individuals destroyed a large part of the structure. An explosive device unknown individuals detonated early Wednesday destroyed a granite monument in Georgia that was built under mysterious circumstances more than 4 decades ago and promoted by state officials as America's Stonehenge, the authorities say. The monument, known as Georgia Guidestones, which was built about 9 miles, had 4 granite slabs, but on 4 a.m. Wednesday. So wait, what did the Georgia Guidestones say?
So somebody,
Yeah, but people think it was the government because it said like more anarchist type shit. Maintain humanity under 500,000. No, under 500 million and perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. That's what the Georgia Guidestones said.
so what's our living new language, do you think, if you went to, is that,
Peace and kindness
well, no, when they
instead of
talk about,
capitalism.
well, no, what, when they talk about a living new language, if you look at what we've got now, are they referring to like social media? Are they referring to, because if you're uniting everyone under a living new language, is that the language of AI, text to speech? But
I know
that's not really alive.
since it said stuff like that, people would assume conspiratorial. I think that was one of the articles was that it was a person that was so anti-conspiracy theories that they decided to destroy because this was around the pandemic and all this when this thing got destroyed.
How long's it been there?
I don't know.
Well, they said 4 decades, so it's 40 years that thing's been there,
Well, now it's not
and
anymore.
not there anymore. So that means that it's been there for a while, and then all of a sudden, one guy just woke up. That's I find it so fascinating. That's the only way I can do it. Where you'll have someone online who'll go, when they talk about like government conspiracies or something, and they'll go, "Yeah, well, I did a Google search and I found this thing that says this," and I'll go, "So you and you and your supreme Google search skills have uncovered a you've uncovered a worldwide
But
conspiracy that no one's been able to find for years."
you know we're in a place like that though, where people get so outraged either on one side with the conspiracy stuff or the opposite side to the point where they blind rage where nothing matters anymore but making sure that this person either gets a chance to talk or doesn't get a chance to talk. Like I don't agree with every conspiracy theory, but I also
I was like, us too. You barely
what
get a chance to talk. There's no
no, just
blind rage involved, though.
China. There's a little bit of blind rage. No, I get like because you got things to say, I got things to say too. But no, I just think it's interesting when we talk about conspiracies. Like I mean, you've listened to my show for a while. Do you think that you're more conspiratorial because of it, and do you think it's a healthy sense of skepticism? I've become more conspiratorial.
I think I'm more conspiratorial because some of those things I never even thought about. They were either outside my realm or I just didn't care in a way. But now, just when you bring them up, and as I get older and uh I learn about more things, I kind of go, "Oh, I never thought of it that way. Oh, I never thought of it that way." And I find it very interesting that although I have realized that, particularly after watching your numerous JFK stuff and helping you with your research, that one side is never, the whole thing about a conspiracy is isn't just one side. That's why this conspiracy is working,
Well,
because it's there's there's another picture that people are either ignoring or they're just not talking.
Well, it's trending now because one of the Secret Service agents, after 60 years, finally stepped forward and said that there was another bullet. He was the one that said that, you know how there was a bullet found on the stretcher, the magic bullet? He was the one who placed it there. So he came out recently and said that there has to be. So now every article is trending saying that there's now has to be two shooters. It can't just be one, which I think everyone's been saying for like decades now. But it's now trending about like this thing. But somebody mentioned something to me, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Is that's the false conspiracy? It's gotten so much evidence after all this 60 years that they have to admit to something, so they're going to blame it either on the mob or they're going to blame it on something like that. Don't take that. Now, what they're going to do probably in the next couple of months is they're going to investigate it again and come up with evidence to support that the shooter was this random person who's dead.
Didn't they? Didn't you say the other day that Biden is saying no more of this?
Oh yeah, he already denied the stuff. That was probably a month and a half ago now.
Yeah. So if you're at that point where, like, if you're at a point where like a president is saying no, 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 that just in many ways with a conspiracy, sometimes that just fuels the flame where
Well,
you
that's
kind
the
of,
thing, is that we actually might get answers, but it's not going to be true answers. It's going to be a half answer, which is the fact that Paul Landis had a step, and everyone's trying to debunk him now, but he basically just put the magic bullet or single bullet theory to rest. If he said he found another bullet that was lodged in the seat, then
it's also the type of thing, you're very right, where this long ago, it's what the answer we're going to get now is not the right one. So it's, again, somebody's going to go, this is what happened, and I don't think we need to talk about it anymore because we found the thing. Isn't this great? We found it finally after all this time. And you're like, no, that's not, and half the people are going to go, that's not even what we were talking about. Oh my God. And so
it's never going to end. It's going to be constant rehashing old theories and all
so
that.
with your show, one of the things one of the things I super appreciate about your show is you've opened me up to a lot of stuff. Even the flat, your friend, there's the flat earther.
Oh,
It,
Jason.
yeah, it reminds me of stuff, like Peter Sellers and his flat earth stuff, but it reminds me that there are people who are normal everyday people, but sometimes they'll just stick to something that you kind of go, like, people like who are creationists, and you go, who think that the earth is like 6,000 years old, and you kind of go, there's
Young Earth
proof.
creationists?
There's, well, the well, when you have a creationist who they'll,
Oh, Christ. I don't want to get into this
no, we
conversation.
won't get into, but all it is you'll have people who will say that the earth is a certain, and it's like, well,
Yeah. It's
and then you go,
20,000 years old.
yeah, and then you go, what about dinosaurs? And they go, dinosaurs are God's test. They
Oh,
were put here and you go,
jeez.
now that's an interesting thing when you
You know,
have,
science has determined that sharks are older than trees.
what?
Sharks have been
Sharks are,
around here longer than trees.
I would guess so,
Isn't that
because there's,
isn't that crazy when you think about it? They've been here longer than trees, and they'll probably be here longer than everything.
it is a, because I guess, yeah, because a lot of people forget that this started as a bowl of water,
Yeah.
and then the water receded, and then the trees came later, kind of thing. But yeah, it's the whole, yeah. So your whole conspiracy, I've opened up to a lot of different topics and a lot of different points of view. And I just find it very interesting that where people get some of their points of view. And you're very right. Sometimes there'll be people who will just start flaming something, and I'll go, did you even read the question? Do you know what they're talking about? And there was a very interesting conversation where people were talking about like the woke generation. I'm not going to get too much into this, but where a lot of the people who are woke are wealthy middle class white people, who have no right to, basically what they're talking about with this culture is privilege in a way. Like what they want is they want another level of esteem from what they already have, kind of thing. So if you have somebody who's like, how many times have we watched somebody? I watched a fantastic YouTube video about a guy who's dressed up in a sombrero and a fake mustache, and he's got a poncho on, and he's interviewing people. So, do you think I'm offensive? And about
And all the Mexicans or people say no, or
70%
Latino
of the
people
some
no.
everybody in the states who we talked to pretty much said, well, yeah, I think you're offensive. You're misrepresenting their culture. Goes to Mexico and
Uh,
they love it, man.
You're
They thought,
you're you're wrong though, because he asked them first when he asked them, "Do you think this is offensive?" They said, "Wait, are you Mexican?" And then he said no, and he goes, "Yes, then you're offensive."
but are you? Why?
Because if you technically are, then it's okay. They support your decision in wearing that, but it doesn't. That's why you can question it because it's bullshit. The like I'm like no, I understand the woke stuff. There are some things I probably become a little bit more woke on and stuff like that, but I've always lived the same mentality of live how you want to live. Like nobody should try and tell you you can't be gay or anything like that. That doesn't work for me. But it's when you're trying to rationalize something that's based on emotion. You can't rationalize with emotion. It's a lot of these, like a lot of people who are feminists and stuff like that. They'll say some stuff that for a fact it's just not true. It's not true. I'm a feminist. I support women. But then if you talk to feminists who are like, you let a girl punch you how many times? And it's like, I don't know. She punched me like 20 times. Do I punch her then? They go, no, after one. She punches you once, you punch her. I go, no, 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 no. You guys got to know we're stronger, right? I hate to be that type of guy, but they don't want to admit that either. And look, I'm not saying that women aren't stronger. There's plenty of women I know that are stronger than me, fucking huge powerlifting chicks that are stronger than me. But then it gets into like the whole sports thing and transgender and all that as well too. I don't necessarily, I mean, you can have them in a separate league. It's not taking away anybody's right to do anything, but I just feel like there's a natural course of how a person was born and created compared to something that might be enhanced. If you're a guy and switch over to a girl like that one dude did and sort of beating the shit out of all these professional women's fighters, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't to me. I have a problem there. That's not necessarily being anti woke. It's just being like, hey, you can actually kill somebody in this sport.
Yeah. You had that one dad who was like, I don't care what you call yourself or what you're doing, but my daughters are not sharing a room with someone with a dick. I
Well,
don't I don't care what pronouns you use. You
the
are
only
not,
the only sport that banned it was chess. Chess said no, we're not doing men versus women, and we're not doing trans, any of that type of stuff. There's just different
which is weird.
brain makeup, which is I think it's just about the way your brain works.
Which is that's very strange kind of thing. And again, if you look
Nobody
at
gives a fuck about chess anyway.
well, no, and again, we could go back to what we were talking about earlier with late night talk shows, and it's only men. Who are the chess champions? When's the last time there was a female chess champion? Because you're thinking, well, who gives a shit? But also, they've never got the chance because it's a different thing, different. Um,
Well, chess is like the sport everyone compares their sport to. Baseball is kind of like chess. Football's kind of like chess.
isn't that interesting? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's because it's like the number one go-to for strategy, which is interesting because video games are nerdy. If you're 40 years old and you're trying to be Batman, it's weird. I think everyone wants to be Batman, but we don't look at that like with chess. Chess is like it's an intellectual
Yeah,
sparring match.
chess isn't. Yeah, you're right. Chess isn't nerdy. You don't. And in fact, if I have mucho respect for someone who's good at chess because it's a different like. But when you get really good at chess, you're not even playing the game anymore. It's in your head. Like when's the last like I was watching this chess match and this guy's looking at the board and then he kicks over his king and he goes, "Oh, you have me in four moves." And so, and the other guy was like, glad you recognize that, and that was the change. But it's like they used to make fun of, do you know the martial arts movies where you'll have two people standing there and they're ready to, or the two samurais, they're ready to go at each other and they don't do anything and they live the battles inside their head. There's been a couple I've seen like that where they'll be just standing there staring at each other and then one of them eventually goes, you got me on that one, but never. And but they didn't do anything. But everything was in their head. It was
They
all
were planning
mental.
it.
Yeah, they were planning the move, what they were going to do, who was going to do what, how I was going to counterattack that. They're just sitting there staring at each other, and eventually one guy goes, "That was a good match, thank you," and the other goes, "You're welcome." And you go, "What the fuck was that?" You know,
Well, I
it,
think that's it was supposed to be healthy competition. I think that healthy competition now has just turned into eliminating the competition.
yeah, there's, and again, it's
Like that's how
that's all.
debates are supposed to be, but they're never like that anymore.
Yeah, they again, you have to do when you have your parents who like, I wasn't raised with healthy competition in a way. Like my, it was like win at all costs, that was the thing. And these days that seems to be like that. The sport, there doesn't seem to be a healthy sports vibe kind of thing. There isn't really that thing. That's yeah, that's interesting. Because in chess, you crush your opponents.
Yeah, you're supposed to get up and slap the board out of their hands and be like, screw you.
Yeah, exactly. Or you click your clock. So take that.
Checkmate, ho.
Oh,
Just toss that out there. The dude's dressed up in a blazer with the fucking pads on his elbows.
that's right. When's the last time you showed up in a chess match with a helmet kind of thing? So it'd be like,
Mhm.
just get ready. Just get ready. Because, well, when we get into contact chess, then we know we're in trouble. That's Although they're kind of doing that already. There's a couple video games already where it's you move your characters into the same square and then they beat the shit out of each other, and then the one who stands is the one who wins. But it's just like battle chess. Oh man, that is, yeah. I think we're in a crazy time. We're in a
Have you had to set up anything for your voice acting that could be AI generated or anything like that, claiming rights to your voice?
I have not, and I've been very lucky. I have had to add a honking disclaimer to my invoices these days, and I have to explain it to people because it's full of legalese shit that I had to look up and do stuff, which it was something I wasn't really planning on doing, because outside of my, like with my agent, they're actually got it covered, and they talk to the clients, they make them sign a release saying you're not going to, basically what you're trying to get them to say is they won't sell your voice to a third party. They're allowed to use your voice for what they paid you for. That's the thing. But if they want to take that voice and use it for like a third party uh text to speech. See, there's a difference between an AI voice and text to speech. AI voices are still going to be hard as fuck to do, kind of thing, with where somebody is generating your voice or something. But if somebody is taking like a dragon speak program where they've taken a combination of a certain amount of your words, and they can get you to say certain things, that's different. That's a different type of thing, where with an AI one, you could say to the AI, can you um read me the Gettysburg Address, and my voice will read it, even though I don't have it, or they'll say, can you deliver me a poem about this, and chat GPT and shit, will get into that later. But all this legalese shit, I have to explain it to all the clients because they look at it and go, what the fuck is that? And because it looks kind of scary, because there's no regulation on that yet, and until there's regulation put into place, we kind of have to watch our backs, because you're going to get caught in the TikTok scandals, and you're going to get caught in the, like, I feel so bad in a way for the original voices of Alexa and Siri in particular. She didn't know she was doing that shit, for the person who did the original voice of that. And when you see what it ends up being used for, you think she probably should have got more money
Yeah.
than what she did. Um, and in the end, she's not actually saying a lot, but it's sort of like people who they're called sat nav shit. What do they call them? Where the things you use in your car to navigate around, kind of thing. Uh,
GPS.
yeah, GPS center. And so you'll have the voices who are on your GPS. Now, I get a kick out of people who they do like different voices on their GPS. Like I had Homer Simpson for a while, and I had Billy Connolly for a while, and just in my car, which was, I had to turn that one off. Fucking turn the night. It's because you kept swearing. But the whole point of those was they've had, usually that's someone mimicking a voice to sound like them. Now with text to speech, I haven't really got into that point yet, where it's really big still in China. They love that kind of stuff because there's a whole it's easier to do that, and they don't. It's almost like they don't really care that we're at a point like we've seen so many YouTube videos where I'll start watch a video and I'll go, oh, I can't watch this anymore. That's an AI narrator, and that just drives me crazy because there's that uncanny valley. I don't like it at all. Although, again, there's that one voice, and I'm still trying to find out who it is. Sounds like a young Orson Welles, and I'm sure it's an AI voice. I'm pretty sure it's an AI voice. Uh, and I actually kind of like it. I thought, yeah, that's an interesting voice. But so are they going to take my job? Probably not. Not for a while. I learned that during my last um, couple sessions. What, for example, I did a a thing for Huawei where they at the when you turn on and off a Huawei phone, it'll go Huawei at the end. Like an actual voice that says it does their sound or whatever, and then it goes Huawei. And so they contacted me and they said, we're looking to replace the voice. Can you do that? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And I thought we'd be in the booth for maybe half an hour because it was one word. All I had to say was Huawei. Our first session was 4 hours. Our second session was 2 hours, and they still didn't get what they wanted. And
Jesus.
then, after finally they got a hold of me. The client got a hold of me and said, "Look, can you just rattle me off about 18 just random Huawei's?" This was the note I got. Can you sound like someone who was not born in the UK, but has moved to the UK and speaks fluent Japanese, or I mean, fluent Chinese?
Huawei.
Well, exactly. You kind of go, what the fuck? Like, what type of note is that? It's one word. How are people going to tell that I've, um, they might be able to tell I speak fluent Japanese and I'm not, or fluent Chinese and I'm not Chinese.
Huawei.
Yeah, but are they going to know that I'm not originally from the UK and now I'm in the UK? And not only am I in the UK, but I speak Chinese. And so I'm going to say Huawei for you. And I looked at that note and I went, are you kidding? Like, what is this? And then when I finally I got it finally in the end, I don't know what I did, but yeah, we did that for 6.5 hours and they still didn't get, imagine standing in the booth at like 2 o'clock in the morning going, Huawei, 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 Huawei. Because you just, in the end,
Eventually, you just start singing the line "Sleeps Tonight." Owing Moe, owing Moe.
exactly, because you start going, this is ridiculous. And you go, who is on the other end of this pulling this string where they're not getting it? They want something so specific. And in the end, you kind of go, why did they even hire someone to do this? They could have just got anybody to do that. Just somebody said because it's just one word. And it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating from as a professional because I was going, this is ridiculous. These guys are taking the mick now, and that was really hard. Like, but leading into that, um, I was doing another spot where the client went, I hate AI voices. And I went, why is that? And he goes, well, we'll see. And when we started to do the spot, he goes, okay, this particular client, their tagline is like 4 words long. And he goes, this particular word is very important. It's more important than these words. So we need you to do this to this word, but not to these words. And to get an AI to do that is next to impossible these days. The amount of programming that you would need to do. So we're not at that point where somebody can say to an AI, can you do it like this?
Yeah.
And they will. Now, can they sound like you? Sure. Can they sound like you doing a certain thing? No. Like if you like you've been instructed, but they can sound like you. So it's an interesting thing. But in many ways, I'm not worried about it because I've decided that you can't fight technology. If you try and fight technology, you're going to lose because technology is not going anywhere. It is going to be here. So I've decided to work with it rather than against it. So
Would you let me experiment with you on social media and see if I can grow up your channel a little bit?
I'm sure if you want.
I have a feeling that you'd be really good at doing those stitches, that voiceover. Like it's you with a camera, you record yourself talking into a microphone or something, but you can narrate videos that people have on social media. And I feel like people would just be so attracted to your voice that you could get a really on TikTok specifically, you got to make a TikTok. I
That's
have
one
one
thing
video on there, it's 107,000 views. Trust me, you can get there if you just follow the algorithm.
I did. I don't. I am not even on TikTok at the moment. So see, there you
Yeah,
go.
create a channel as soon as we get done here. It's like creating an Instagram. All you got to do is just type in your info, and then next thing you know, you got a video, and then you can start uploading clips. You can even I'll send you some clips of our conversations.
Yeah, and I'll go, here you go. Just now, here's now as so you're saying you've got all the followers on TikTok. What does that do to you? Like, does it just feel good that you have all those followers, or
No, just one video has 107,000 views. I mean, it gets you exposure. People go into your channel and subscribe. I gotten some subscribers from
I
it,
do know there are a couple of my compadres who
but if
do.
you build up a nice profile, then people see it and they might want to hire you for more stuff. I don't know. And anything, it gets your voice out there as well too. So at least when you put up a clip, people can
It's
like
actually
it.
a good thought. There's no reason not to, kind of thing. So it's again, I could go, nah, I'm not going to do this stuff, but there's no. It's the type of thing where, yeah, let's experiment. Let's have some fun.
Okay. Well, where can people find you, Casper? I got to wrap it up.
People can find me on social media under Kasper Michaels with a K because I'm the only one.
That's cute. Um, I'll link those in the description. Casper, it's been a pleasure chatting with you again. It's always been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to you. Thank you very much. You make me laugh, young man.
Glad to have known you this long and glad you keep coming back. But thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Out of the Blanket. Stay tuned for our next episode.